Hi, this is Lorraine from Lowe's Life and Lessons. I hope everyone is well today. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Ottawa, and I'm just very happy to be with you. Today we're going to talk about acceptance. Now, there's a word for you, accept. Now, we can accept a job, we can accept a proposal, we can accept a bribe. But the kind of acceptance that I want to talk about today, and I'm going to refer to a few notes just because I want to make some points and not forget them. But really, you know that my videos are not scripted at all. Acceptance is the ability to unconditionally value all parts of who we are, which means that we acknowledge all of ourselves, the good and the things that need improvement. And for most of us, self-acceptance can be very hard. So we're going to talk about some of those areas, but first of all, I want to share with you my scent of the day, which is 1902 Violette. Now, this is by a perfumer in France, Berdoues, which started in 1902. And it is a floral, fruity fragrance, sweet and powdery, with notes of violet, bergamot, lilac, raspberry, almond bark, jasmine, iris, and musk. It's comforting, fresh, and just a delightful fragrance for a warm summer day. Whenever my granddaughter comes over to visit, she always likes to have a little spray of one of my perfumes. Now, the one she always chooses is Lolita Lempicka. I think she likes the bottle. But anyway, by the time you see this video, she will have had a birthday. She's turned 4, and I'm going to see her at her party tomorrow, and I'm going to give her this little decant with some of this beautiful violet perfume. This is a lovely decant that I've had sitting around in my linen closet for a long time. So I just sprayed a little bit of that violet perfume in there. I think it'll be quite suitable for a 4-year-old. So I can't wait for her to receive this as one of her birthday gifts. One of the biggest challenges, of course, for us women is the ability to accept our body. You know, we have so much pressure on us from advertising, from TV, from the celebrities, to look a certain way, to have our hair and makeup a certain way, to be a certain weight, to be a certain level of fitness. There's so much pressure on us. And I don't think I know one woman who is satisfied, let alone pleased, with her body size and shape. And I certainly have never in my whole life. I've always felt overweight. There were times in my life, yes, I might have been 5 or 10 pounds overweight, but I felt very obese. And it was just that feeling in my head. And I know many women have experienced the same thing. And the same with all the lumps and bumps that we develop as we get older. It happens to all of us. Even thin people have lumps and bumps where they weren't there before. It's just part of menopause. It seems to be part of aging. I don't know what it is. But to accept our body at any stage of our life is a real challenge. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't decide to do something about it, to improve our level of fitness and our level of exercise, and to maybe eat better. We can always do that. But at the same time, we do need to have a certain level of acceptance about where we are today. Another aspect of our lives that may be difficult to accept is our health. Now, when we're young, we don't even think of our health. We have lots of energy. We don't need much sleep. You know, we can just go, go, go. And we did this, didn't we? I mean, we did it as we went to school. We had our education. We established a career, or we brought up our children. We were just going from dawn till dusk with not a problem, not a care, not an ache or a pain. I used to have the odd headache, but that was pretty much it. So now that we're a bit older, many of us have aches and pains. Some of us may have diabetes, heart disease, mobility issues, and this can be very difficult to accept. It's not impossible to accept, but there needs to be a certain amount of acceptance of our limitations if we are to have any peace in our lives. I mean, we can't go back. We just cannot go back. So that is an area that is very challenging for all of us. It's also difficult sometimes to accept our emotions. And of course, this applies to anybody at any age. You know, when we feel hurt and we say out loud that we feel hurt, it makes us feel very vulnerable. So sometimes that's really uncomfortable. And the same with emotions like jealousy. We don't want to admit that. We don't want to admit that we feel angry. We want to be nice people, right? We want to be always in a good mood. Unfortunately, the reality of our emotions is not that way. We do have these emotions and we need to accept them. A long time ago, I had learned from somebody that it may be a good idea, especially in terms of maybe feeling self-pity. So if I felt self-pity, I would give myself 10 minutes to feel sorry for myself. And I just found that putting a timeline on it kind of helped. And then I wouldn't let myself slide into the dumps and ruin my whole day or my whole evening. I would just allow myself 10 minutes to feel self-pity. So there are ways to deal with our negative emotions, although emotions really aren't negative, but sometimes it's difficult for us to accept that we do have these uncomfortable emotions, but we're human and we all have those emotions. We don't want to treat ourselves harshly because of these emotions. We want to be compassionate to ourselves and just work on accepting those emotions. You can see that acceptance is a quality or a characteristic of our personality that can be applied to all areas of our lives. I think the first time that I really was challenged to accept something difficult in my life was when my father died very suddenly when I was 20 years old. I mean, at midnight he was alive and at 2 a.m. he was dead. It was that sudden. And the shock of it, I will really never forget. It was one of the biggest shocks of my life, the reality that my father was no longer with us. He was no longer with the family. At 49, he died. At 49, my mother was a widow. I was out of the home at that time, but my two younger sisters were still living at home. So my mother was left with the challenge of being a single parent of two teenagers. So this was a real shock and a change in lifestyle for my family. And it took a while to accept the reality of that. And I'm sure some of you can relate to that. And I'm sure that we've all experienced the end of romantic relationships and that broken heart. That broken heart is real and causes us so much pain and so many tears. And we feel our self-esteem is down in the dumps. We just feel unworthy. We are hurt. We feel betrayed or abandoned. I mean, I've certainly gone through it a few times. I won't say several times, but I certainly have gone through it a few times. And I'm sure many of you have also. It's very difficult to accept the end of a relationship, and it takes time. I know for two of mine, I would say it took 1 to 2 years to fully accept that that relationship was over, that it was part of my history, part of my past. And now I'm able to look at those relationships just a chapter in my long life. Another area that we face is certain situations with our adult children. You know, when our children are young, we can fix them. We can fix them with a kiss and a hug and a few kind words, and they feel so much better. But as they grow older, we lose that ability. They are influenced by their friends, they're influenced by the world, and they grow up to be adults, and they develop their own coping mechanisms. And sometimes that is difficult for us to accept. And our children may have a chronic illness, an illness that began in childhood, or even an illness that begins in their adult life. And this is really difficult for us to accept. It's a burden on us as parents. We don't want to see our children suffer. But as they're adults, there may be certain situations in their lives, certain relationships that they're in that we really don't approve of, that we would rather not be part of their lives. But you know, it's not up to us. Our adult children have their own path to follow, and we need to accept them as they are and accept the situation and try very hard not to judge. It's difficult. I know it's very difficult. Similarly, some of our friends and even our children may have different beliefs than we have. For example, if we brought up our children in a certain religion, they may choose to change their belief system as they grow older. And we need to accept that. Again, they are on their own path. It's the same with certain friends of ours may have a certain belief system, and then all of a sudden they join a group or they take on a philosophy that to us may seem strange or it may seem unacceptable, but we need to accept that others do have different beliefs and they are just as valid to them as our belief system is to us. Again, a real challenge in acceptance. As we get older too, our health may really decline. We may come to the point where we question whether we can really take care of ourselves properly, whether we can bathe ourselves, whether we can cook nutritious meals, whether we can get out shopping. Yes, we may have help in the home, and that is certainly something that is an option, and we should consider that. But there may be a time when we think, maybe it is time for a retirement home. And often, the children of these aging parents will make that suggestion, and the parents will just absolutely refuse to give up their independence. This is really a hard thing to accept. There are people in my apartment building, I can think of two right off the bat, who, in my opinion, should not be living by themselves. I don't think it's safe for them to be living by themselves. But what can you do? Some of these people have a really hard time accepting that point in their lives, and it's really a heartbreaking situation for the family. So again, that can be a really difficult time in our lives and really difficult to accept that maybe it's time that we really do accept that we cannot be independent any longer. I also want to talk about two areas for my younger subscribers, because I know you're out there. When you're going to school and you're planning for your career and you're on a budget, sometimes it's really difficult to accept that you cannot buy the fancy clothes. Maybe you cannot eat in a restaurant with your friends as often as you would like to. You cannot have a career until you put in those years of education. So it's a matter of selecting your priorities. Sometimes that's hard to accept. When you're young and you feel that you should be carefree, it's sometimes difficult to have that kind of discipline. It's admirable, I must say, but it is not easy. So acceptance is a challenge our whole lives through, and acceptance is an active process. It's something that we work on constantly. To accept is a verb. It's something that we do and should be practiced consciously in order for us to have a peaceful life. To accept something doesn't mean that you can't work on changing it. It doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean relinquishing responsibility. It doesn't mean that you can't make a change. You can accept your body and still work on improving it. You can accept your emotions and not be hard on yourself for feeling those emotions. You can accept that those emotions are not permanent, that they will change, because emotions are fluid and they do change. So I hope you've enjoyed this video today. Do consider subscribing, and I thank you so much for joining me today and spending a few minutes with me. I would love to hear your comments and any suggestions you have about any future videos. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I certainly will see you in my next video. Bye-bye for now.